Let's do a little
4,
exercise.
1,
Element 115, essentially non-existent.
3, 4.
And he told police he was able to time travel because aliens filled his body with, you guessed it, alcohol.
See?
Boys!
Yeah, what monastery was that?
What monastery was that? You wouldn't know it, so I'm not even gonna bother telling you.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow,
it was a little,
kinda rude.
it was a little monastery, you know, in like the woods.
So
you
it was a
wouldn't-
modest monastery?
It
is that what
it
you'd
was
say?
quite modest. Yes, you could say that it was
wasn't a-
minuscule. Yeah,
It looks like it's the temple of the loose wrist, by the way. He was just.
Is it a Mothman monastery?
Mike, that
wait.
temple 100% doesn't exist.
Wow. You know
Hey.
all temples?
I do. And I definitely didn't study at the Temple of the Loose Wrist. Absolutely not. No way out of the question.
Are you
where he used
familiar
to
with
have to
Legends
do
of the
horse
Hidden
stance
Temple?
on drums.
So many questions.
I know. We were bombarding Mitch this morning or this afternoon. I've lost track
We
of
haven't
time.
talked to each other in 3 days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's been
so
a
wild,
long
dude.
time, dude.
We got a
There's
lot
like
of
an ongoing text thread going.
Yeah, but like that doesn't count. It's not face to face.
Yeah, it could be anybody
Right
texting.
yeah,
Sure. You're right.
It could not even be me.
99% of the time, it's my cat texting you guys.
Wow.
We know
Your cat
The
has
limited
really good
amount-
grammar for the most part.
Yeah, he's got thumbs.
Is she one of those cats that has thumbs?
Yeah,
Wow. Six
he's also
digits
got
or something?
he's also got a sick sense of humor. If you guys haven't noticed in the text
Oh,
You were
I'm
gonna say
sure.
he had I thought you were going to say he had a big old dick.
big old honking dick. Yeah, actually, funny story. My cat actually has a micro penis, so we thought it was a girl for the first 3 months I had it, and then the vet took me in and is like, "Hey, this cat is a boy." I'm like, "What?"
Love
like
this.
it even had the scar from where it got like it's whatever they do to female cats. Is it spaying or neuter?
Yeah, yeah.
Neutering's for boys, right? So yeah, it even
Spaying.
had the
Holy
scar for
shit.
spaying, like it was a female cat. But then I went to the vet, and the vet's like, "Yeah, this is a boy," and it like pulled out its little micro penis and showed me it to prove it. Yeah,
Oh,
it
geez.
was it was weird.
Prove it.
So for like the first like
And
3
it
or
had
s-
the surgery?
yeah. So I don't. They must have gone in there and like pulled his balls out from the slash on his stomach
Oh,
or something. I don't know.
God.
I don't know. The people I bought it from were like, "Yeah, this is a girl cat." They even named it a girl cat before I named it, and then yeah. So my cat has a micro penis, and I make fun of him relentlessly.
I have never been more glad about asking about the size of something's penis in my life. That was just wonderful.
Yep. Well, there's always
That's
a
so
story for
crazy.
everything, boys.
That same thing happened to my cousin.
Is he okay?
He has the scar to prove it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, boys. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the Beastie Boys, no relation.
That's one
You
way to
guys-
open, huh?
Yeah, that was a good cold open, boys.
Did anyone come up with any news articles for this week? I have one.
Oh, I have one too. And I want to
gotta
go
go.
first because I didn't get
Oh
to
my
share
God.
mine last time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We steamrolled Mitch last episode.
You
Sorry.
did, and it's not the same article because that's old news now. So
Yeah.
this one's kind of quick. So hear me out on this one. Chupacabras in Russia? Question mark. The number of reports is increasing. This is from December 11th, 2020. So apparently, according to a Russian news site, all throughout November, this is in a rural part of Russia. There's been killings of livestock, and so like rabbits, cows, horses, chickens. All of them are getting their blood completely drained from them, and the locals are suspecting the Chupacabra.
Ooh, das vidanya, Chupacabra.
Is Chupacabra like the first thing they think of? Like, why not Dracula?
Yeah, you would think it would fit more because it's like Eastern Europe, vampires, but
Yeah.
they just
More fun, I think.
jump to this like deformed wolf that lives in Mexico.
Maybe it's a cover. Maybe they're just like, oh yeah, well it actually is Dracula, but they don't want Dracula to be known yet.
Yeah, I like
So they're blaming it on the Chupacabra.
If you ever read that novel, Dracula is a pretty crafty guy. I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, it's true.
Mm.
I like that. That's cool, Mitch. That's a cool little article.
Yeah. So a little brief, but I wanted to get it in there.
Yeah, I'm into it.
Chupacabra. He must be living in like the warm parts. I don't know. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
I mean, like,
maybe
how
it's
did
just
it get there? Like, did it get there through the exotic animal trade or something? Like, did someone think they had like some cool new kind of wolf, and it turned out to be the Chupacabra, or like how'd that happen?
My money's on a Dracula. My money is on a Dracula.
Yeah, same here. It's close enough to Eastern Europe. I'll allow it.
Had to get some flying in.
Did you guys hear about the Israeli scientist that was talking
for
about?
a joke?
I wish. No,
You guys
this is-
hear about the Israeli scientist?
Yeah, waka waka. Yeah, did you guys hear about this? The space security chief came out saying that extraterrestrials exist and that we have been in contact with them, and Israel and America are both claiming that we know about a galactic federation, but we have to keep it secret. This is what this Israeli guy came out. And then he also admitted that Trump knew about this the whole time. And that's most likely why Space Force is a thing now.
My favorite part.
That's the
That
best
is my
part.
absolute
So
favorite.
ridiculous. But they also said that the aliens aren't ready to reveal themselves because we're not ready. Like, our technology is so bad. To me, it's like, if they're here and they're talking to us, why wouldn't they give us the technology?
Why are they holding it over our heads?
Yeah. They
What a
wanted
bunch
to
of
us.
assholes.
I think they know that we're just a bunch of damn dirty apes on this goddamn planet.
Well, that's
Well,
all right,
firstly,
but like still,
They're right.
I mean,
They might
they're
be
not
right,
wrong.
but
Still,
It
fuck
sounds
aliens,
like a cool
dude.
kids table.
yeah, hell yeah, Mitch. I like this.
Yeah, fuck aliens.
Yeah,
Come to
fuck
my
them
house,
aliens.
you assholes. I'll kick your ass.
I'd pay to see that.
That's why we're not invited.
Yeah,
Right
yeah,
there.
because of people
There
like
you go.
Mitch.
Yeah, no,
Always
actually,
trying to
the
fight.
last 30 seconds, I think I flipped off the sky. We all have made great examples as to why the aliens should not want to involve themselves with us.
I don't
Yeah, we
even
made
let
it
them watch me
perfectly clear.
jerk off.
Oh my god.
I only heard jerk off. That's all I heard. Everything else was broken up by the internet.
Oh,
Well, they
my-
know what I said.
Yeah, they know what you
Yeah,
said.
they're listening to our podcast. That's for sure.
Yes.
Oh, they're our biggest fans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
why
Mike,
they
do you
do
have an article you would like to share?
I mean, I don't give a shit, but
I love this
I did read a
blasé
thing
attitude
about-
Mike has.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
well,
I know-
aliens, man. We're never getting into a club that I really, really, really wanted to get into, and it hurts. It hurts when I hear it. I deal with it. I'll move along. But knowing that I'm never going to be able to go to the merch store for Galactic Federation hurts a little.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
right.
I totally get
So
a Galactic
police
Federation
officers
shirt.
in the mountains of Santa Cruz responded to a suspicious figure in a roadway back in November. A Bigfoot statue from a museum out in where is this? Somewhere in California. There's a museum. I found this 2 weeks ago, and I don't remember now. There's a Bigfoot museum in California, and somebody jacked their Bigfoot carved statue out in the front.
And then
That
they
was
put it
first
out on
one
the
that they
highway.
got and then it was like ditched. It was like taken for a joyride and then ditched. But he got the statue back, that's all that mattered.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is news to me.
It was gone for
Yeah.
a couple days, and then these two cops, they seen Bigfoot in the road. And they're like, whoa! But it turned out to be a wood carving, which was stolen. And like, it's a big story, more
sure.
in local news than it is in Bigfoot news, on account of stolen property was actually returned.
That
Where-
rarely happens.
Where'd you say this was? Santa Cruz, California?
The Santa Cruz, they found it. The museum, I think, the Scotts Valley Police Department found it, and it had been taken from the Bigfoot Discovery Museum, which is behind a paywall.
That's how they get you.
Hey, were any of you guys in Santa Cruz last month?
The truth is out there. I went. It was like a 4 foot tall wood carving. So that it's like not an easy. That's not an easy haul.
Yeah, you need a
And
big
he
truck
had
to
it
move that.
chained. Homeboy had it chained and locked, and I guess like
Wow.
he went out of the museum, went back inside, and like he saw the lock in the wrong place, but he didn't really think too much about it, and then next thing you know, teenagers.
Or Bigfoot. What if Bigfoot
My fav-
stole the Bigfoot statue?
His own likeness. He's
Yeah.
like, no one's paid me for this.
Yeah. He wants his royalty
wha-
check, dude.
The part that made me want to tell you guys was the wooden replica was created by a wood carver with the help of the museum's founder, is nicknamed Danny due to his likeness to actor Danny DeVito.
God.
I thought you were gonna say Danny
Oh.
Tamborelli, but Danny DeVito is even better.
Yeah. So someone stole Danny, and then so the gang steals Danny, and then it gets found.
Oh my god,
Wow.
that's
Well,
awesome.
That's
at
what
least
I-
that story had a happy ending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yes. All right. Well, hot from the presses of thevintagenews.com.
Oh boy.
Ghost hunters capture spirit of merchant's wife who hanged herself in 1844.
Whoa,
So
where's
this?
this?
Is a live streaming event that was taking place in Nottinghamshire.
Okay.
They were exploring the Sheffield General Cemetery by night. When during this live streaming event, there were paranormal investigators. They encountered a restless spirit from the past. So, like, they're doing a live stream, and all of a sudden, this like floating white lady appeared, and they're lingering around the graves. There's like footage of it from this live stream, and apparently, it is a woman who hanged herself in 1837 following the death of her husband.
Ooh.
Yeah. And
So wait, you see the spooky lady on the live stream?
yes.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah, do we have footage of this? Is there footage we can find of that?
No,
Yeah, there's
no,
footage
no,
of it.
no.
Yep.
I will
Yep,
have to look-
thevintagenews.com is the source of this article.
I
and,
gotta convince
can link
myself
it in
not
a
to
post.
look that up when we're done with this because I won't sleep tonight.
We will we'll link that to the episode when we release this episode for sure.
Yeah,
But
it's in
I-
the show notes, and I've already gone and watched it 3 times at least.
have you? Can you put it in the chat? I
Haven't
need
seen it
to. I
yet.
need to see this video ASAP. Oh, okay. Yeah, I want to see
but
that.
as of release. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send it over.
All right, sweet.
Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
all the paranormal investigators, you know, they always look like the type of people you want to hang out with.
Of course.
So
They look
that's
like
always
us.
The best. I mean, yeah, it's kind of. Actually, yeah. If you picked out 4 of them, it could definitely be us.
See, the thing about
bunch of bearded
paranormal
men.
investigators
Yeah.
is I feel like you said, they'd be fun to hang out with, but only for a short time because they're one of those. They strike me as those kind of people that would only ever talk about that one subject because it's like all they like commit their life to. So it's like after you run out of talking about ghosts for 10 minutes, they're gonna want to talk about ghosts for the next 12 hours. I don't know.
I just want to be clear. I was being sarcastic when looking at this group of individuals. I don't think I would want to spend any time with any of them. But that is purely a judgmental flaw of mine. So
Well,
take that with a grain of salt.
That's all right.
All
We're
right. I
all
wanna hang
judgmental
out.
in our own ways.
Yes.
I'll hang out with you. I'll talk about ghosts for 15 hours. I don't
Oh.
give a fuck.
Yeah.
Can we get them on the show? I wonder. Can we
You
get-
guys know it. I would love every minute of it.
Redford,
know you
Redford Paranormal or something. We can. Yeah. Let's reach out to him.
Yeah, let's see-
Robert Redford?
Robert Redford
It's Ret.
Paranormal.
It's Ret with a T, actually. Retford.
Yeah, let's see if we can get them on an episode. Maybe our next ghost episode. We could have them call in or something.
Guys, listen to the show where John talks shit
Yeah, I
about you.
insulted them. I just insulted all of them.
He's only kidding, guys. He's only joking.
Parody.
Don't
It's
take
parody.
Me yeah,
It's parody.
It's ripe for parody.
Yeah. So yeah, that was this week in the news. We made one of those, right?
Spooky news. Crypto
Yeah.
news. Spooky
Gotta
Thank
get
you.
that spooky news. Anyways, so yeah, today's adventure brings us to a special place called Point Pleasant. Are you guys all know about this spot, right? The little
No,
heard about
I've
it.
never heard of it actually. Despite
This
being
is
the one who
where-
suggested the idea.
Take me home.
well, so in this town of Point Pleasant, they discovered the Mothman was actually Richard Gere.
Oh yes,
that's-
yes.
That's the
You know, I believe there was a movie
Yes.
about this mysterious turn of events that some
Yeah.
individuals may or may not have watched and recorded their commentary for.
Yeah, I heard about that too. But it definitely wasn't us.
I don't even like saying that movie is about Mothman.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not. It's cool that they casted Mothman as Mothman, but
Right. Right.
yeah,
Richard
I
Gere
don't.
himself.
But the Mothman's not actually in the movie.
Yeah.
The
That
creature.
movie
Spoiler
had so
alert.
little to do with Mothman. It was a travesty.
Yeah,
It was more of a travesty than the bridge collapse in the movie, not in real life.
Yeah. The whole movie was Richard Gere on the phone explaining that weird shit is happening in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And that's it. That's
Yeah.
the whole movie. And then a bridge collapses. And that's
Yeah.
it.
The
We're gonna go a
entire
little bit
the
deeper
entire
than
movie
the
was
movie.
phone calls, bokeh lights, and weird close-up shots of drains in people's eyes.
And Deborah Messing.
Yes.
Tons of close-ups of Deborah Messing's photo for some reason. They must have run out of stuff that they shot, and they just had to like keep going back and cutting to
my
that
God.
insert.
Mm.
But
In hindsight, they couldn't afford to hire her for all the scenes they wanted her in, so they just did the photo.
inserted her as a picture. Oh, what an awful movie.
But Mothman, the concept
Right.
is fantastic.
Agreed. Yeah, just don't go to
I-
that movie to get your.
I feel the most unprepared, as I was saying earlier, for any episode thus far, because by looking into this, because I'd heard of Mothman so much, you know, he's like a staple of like he's like on the Mount Rushmore of cryptids.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mothman is up there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Easily.
I took for granted my understanding of it, as I usually do, because looking into it was way more interesting than I remember it being. And then also, I had a lot of ideas that were just wrong. And being able to look it up online, because when I first heard most of this stuff, it was just on like Coast to Coast AM, a spooky story radio show. And I didn't necessarily have the access that I did now to just be able to Google and be like, oh, who's this guy? What's this guy do? When this happened? And the stuff that I found out, pretty great.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into it.
Yeah, I'm looking
I'm going
forward
to
to
introduce. I'll give you guys a little bit of an introduction to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and then I'll let the boys kind of tell you a little bit about the Mothman and the different weird things that happen. So Point Pleasant, it's a town in western West Virginia. It's on the Ohio River, the mouth of the Kanawha River. The settlement was developed around 1774. There was a bunch of fights. Actually, I don't know if you guys discovered this, but it claimed to be the first fight of the Revolutionary War.
Really?
And it was disputed. Yeah, it was actually disputed that Lexington was the original spot, but then it ended up going with Point Pleasant. So Point Pleasant has the record for being the first battle of the American Revolution, which is pretty fascinating that town I got that honor, I guess. But so there were.
It's a weird thing to fight over for me. It's a weird, like,
yeah.
who gets the honor of having the first blood spilled?
You think they had muskets and they were standing in a line and they were like, all right, whoever wins this battle is the
No, it
first
sounds
battle
like-
of Revolutionary.
40, 50 years later, they were like, we killed him first. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
We did. No,
Yeah.
you didn't. And that's why we're not in the Federation. Go on.
That's right. So the aliens do not want a piece of this. So anyways, a bunch of Native Americans were killed during the Revolutionary War battles in this town. And one of the main was a chief. Sorry, what's his name again? I'm drawing
Chief
a blank.
Cornstalk.
Chief Cornstalk was killed. Oh, here it is in my notes. He was killed in the town, and that death is said to have cursed the town through the future, and that kind of ties Mothman to this chief's death, this Shawnee leader, and that is what a lot of people believe is the beginning of these hauntings or curses or whatever you want to call the Mothman sightings or whatever. So that kind of like triggered it all off. That was in the 1700s, and then you flash forward around the 1940s. Point Pleasant became an area where TNT was stored. It had there was this massive area called the TNT area, which was about 5 miles north of Point Pleasant, and it was 3,600 acres of wildlife reserve that was turned into like, well, it started as like a little nature reserve, then it became the TNT thing, and then now it's back to being a farm reserve, a nature reserve. But what happened is when they were storing all this TNT on the land, it poisoned all of the ponds and lakes in the area. All the explosives had seeped into the ground and just poisoned everything. And so in the 1970s, this town, the town of Point Pleasant, became #1 on the list of cleanup areas. So, because in the 70s there was a group, the EPA started a list of the top most polluted areas in the United States, and it gave them special funding to help clean it up.
Oh, Superfund
that
sites.
was what's that?
Super fun sites. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Super fun. That's the word. So they ended up like it got shut down. It was poisoned. They started to clean it up. As they were cleaning it up, or right before they were cleaning it up, one of the bunkers exploded and just completely decimated a huge chunk of the land in that area, and just like it just scorched earth for I forget the size. I want to say it was like I thought I had it in my notes, but it was about like
It's big.
about 1,000 acres. It says right here.
So
Wow. That's big.
Yoo-hoo!
Yeah, I mean
So
they
can
were
we do
storing
some
tons
dummy
of
science?
What's that?
Can we do some dummy science?
Sure.
If it's TNT,
Yep.
if Hollywood movies that I watch were correct, does that mean as it decays it creates nitroglycerin, which is extra explosive?
I think so, right? Well, isn't nitroglycerin already in nitroglycerin's the N in TNT, isn't it? And when it's
So
it sweats.
whenever they did the TV shows and the movies at the high intensity,
Yeah.
they would have an old mining box of TNT, like dynamite sticks.
Yeah.
And then they weren't properly stored or whatever, so then they became like liquidy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I
'cause
always
they
thought
sweat.
that was and that sweat is supposed to be even more explodey than the dynamite
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah, because it becomes unstable. Nitroglycerin is already unstable.
Yeah.
So
And
now you have barracks full of these super juicy explodey sticks. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, all that juice too is just leaking into the wildlands of Point Pleasant.
Gross.
And I'm sure if we dug a little bit deeper, I'm sure we could find crazy birth defects and other things that totally messed with these people in this area, and I'm sure had something to do with these sightings that were that happened in the 1960s. So, I mean, there was still, during the Mothman incident, there was still TNT being stored in these areas. They weren't taken out until the 70s when they started doing the EPA super funds. So, yeah, this stuff was just, for 30 years, it was just leaking into the groundwater and just poisoning the land. And since then, it has been cleaned up, and now it's just a nature reserve. It's about 8,000 acres now of just animal reserve. The bunkers are still there. You can see photos and stuff. One of them, the exploded one, is still like rubble, but it's all kind of like the scorched earth has obviously grown back and everything. But there's animals that occupied the area and stuff.
I'm gonna assume that they took away all the explosives finally from the place.
Yeah. In the 70s when they cleaned up the area, they had to.
Can you go visit? Like, can you go to these places and actually go to them? Oh, we should totally do that someday.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Totally
There's actually a
go to the
photographer.
TNT area.
There's a photographer, I can't remember his name, who actually went into the woods and did like a photojournalism piece on the on all the bunkers, and they're actually like they're awesome photos. We'll link it in the story in our notes. His photography is really cool. It's very like I mean, it looks like World War II bunkers, but they look like they haven't been used in 60 years. They look gross, and so that's. The TNT we'll see in a little bit how it kind of that area kind of ties into the Mothman and everything, and as you can see, it was a pretty big deal for the town. I mean, we're dealing with thousands of acres that was just completely poisoned in this town of West Virginia. So yeah, we'll loop back to that. It'll come back with the whole Mothman stuff. But then, so flash forward to to the 1967, and that's when the Mothman starts to get sighted in town. And it's between 1967 and what was it, 1970? I'm trying to scan through my notes.
1967, 1968.
Okay, so it was only a year. There was only a year where these sightings were being
No,
found.
so from 66 to 67 it was.
67.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was when all the kind of the spottings were being found, and it all culminated, all these sightings, and then it leads into what the Mothman prophecies covered, which was the bridge collapse at the end of that movie. And I won't go into much detail because I'm going to leave it to you guys, but that's kind of like the arc of there's a whole bunch of stuff in between there that my boys here will cover. But that's kind of the basics of what kind of town West Virginia was. It's a mining town, coal mining town, and had a lot of explosives. And so I'm leaning towards that nitroglycerin leaking into the water definitely had effect on some people's psyche. That's for sure.
Explosive
yeah.
diarrhea.
Yeah, so
Ooh,
I guess first things
gross.
first, you guys want to jump right in? Who wants to talk about the Mothman? We want to jump to you, Mike?
Buzz.
Have you?
I'm going to talk about the Mothman.
You're talking about Mothman. So John's got it. So I'm going to throw it over
like
to
a
you,
moth
John.
to a flame.
That's right. Just like that great Metallica song.
Yeah. Sorry.
So yeah, sort of breaking this down, Jarvis painting a nice picture of the area of Point Pleasant. That is the specific Mothman that I will be expanding upon. In addition to like our tale that we'll hear from Point Pleasant, West Virginia, there are some other cases of Mothman being seen. Like in 2017, there were 55 sightings of a Mothman-like creature in Chicago. So these are like people that voluntarily came forward to report a sighting. And, but like, we're here to talk about West Virginia Mothman, right? Point Pleasant Mothman. The main sightings, which we mentioned, they started in mid-November 1966, and the last one was on December 15th, 1967. So there is like a very definitive end date, right? That end date is not only does it predate Jarvis's birthday by a couple of decades,
Yeah,
today,
several.
but it also is the date of that like bridge collapse, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But so mid-November 1966, there's not as much of a definitive date in the beginning because there are some stories that sort of are conflicting with each other. Now, we've heard Point Pleasant a bunch, but there's also this town of Clendenden, West Virginia, which apparently on November 12th, 1966, was the first sighting of Mothman in this area. So, as reports say, it was a small group. Some reports say 4 people, some reports say 5 people. But this small group of people were grave diggers. That's right. If this story wasn't spooky / made up enough, it starts with some grave diggers.
Wait, you
Now-
talk about the hip hop group led by the RZA? That grave
yeah,
diggers?
exactly. RZA, yeah. They were out in Clendenden, West Virginia, late at night, digging grave, and apparently, they look up and they saw something large fly over their heads, moving from tree to tree, and it was described by these individuals as a, quote, brown human being with wings. So they see this otherworldly creature hopping from tree to tree, moving quickly, and that is apparently the first sighting of Mothman. Now, the reason I say apparently is because this sort of story didn't really come to light until after the first sighting in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which was on November 15th, 1966. There's a lot of people and opinions that say like the town of Clendenden is trying to like one up them in Point Pleasant and just trying to get like their own little
Oh, damn.
piece of the pie.
Yeah,
you know?
of course.
That's
When you say he's jumping from
multi-rivalry.
tree to tree,
Yeah.
it reminds me of Predator. Like I have the imagery of like the Predator
Yes.
when he's jumping from tree to
Yes.
tree. And
I love that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So a lot of people, especially in the area of Point Pleasant, they swear by this November 15th sighting. And so this is right in Point Pleasant, right, which Jarvis has mentioned earlier. It's a small town. It's on the bank of the Ohio River, and it's like the western border of the state, right up against Ohio. And so it's 1966. There are these 2 couples that are out in their car. They're driving fast and they're making out, right? That's what you do.
Wait, they're
in the
driving
60s.
and baking out? That's awesome.
Maybe at the same time. Who knows? Maybe they're jerking each other off. Hopefully, good for them.
Sounds
Having
like a bunch of
fun.
irresponsible kids to me.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. So while they're driving around, they reported seeing a white-winged creature about 6 or 7 feet tall standing in front of their car that they were all sitting in, right? So just to be clear, they're sitting in their car at this point. They're no longer driving around, so they're making out. They're eating each other's assholes, whatever you want to imagine. But they see this beast that has a wingspan of about like 10 feet. It's a humanoid being, right? Looks like a man like one of the four of us, but probably more handsome. And it has this 10 feet of wingspan. And a pair of eyes, a pair of wide-set eyes that are set far apart, about 6 inches apart, that are bright red. And so these are sort of like the distinguishing characteristics of Mothman. Tall, humanoid, big wings. Doesn't really look like a moth. Kind of looks more like a man bat. Like I think of man bat when I think of what Mothman looks like.
Yeah.
But Mothman is like what the local newspapers called it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the name that caught on.
Well,
I gotta say, in the Mothman prophecies, the one cool thing they did do was the red eyes throughout the movie. They kind of sprinkled them in as like headlights or taillights and like the construction cones at one point. Like that shit was cool, but that
The
movie
reflectors
fucking
and stuff.
sucks. Yeah.
So I just
but the
wanna,
red eyes are cool.
I just want to interject with just a little fun piece of trivia. So when the moth, I don't know if John was about to say this, so sorry, John, if I steal this from you. But just about the whole being more like a bat thing. Apparently, when they were first writing these news articles, they wanted to call it a Batman, but they were actually afraid of copyright infringement with DC Comics, so that's why they chose the name Mothman. Did you hear about that?
That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Mitch, I had it in my fucking notes, so you know what?
Sorry, John. I don't know. I wanted to-
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
This guy's on the edge of his seat, just needs to get a word in edgewise as
I
I'm
just
telling my
want
fucking
to
story over
have
here.
some fun. I'm sorry.
Unbelievable. Yeah, they were worried. Apparently, they ended up basing it on, I think they were more thinking of Man Bat himself because the actual way that he's like built muscular-wise and like these like wide-set wings. But yeah, they were these like, I guess the local newspaper was the Gettysburg Times was the first one that reported on it calling him the Mothman. So yeah, some reports say that he like didn't even have a head. He just had eyes on his chest. So like widespread on the chest, about 6 inches to 12 inches
So
apart.
his nips. His eyes were his nips.
Yeah, basically his eyes are his nips. They're big old reflectors. They're bright red. And
Reflective,
yeah,
active.
so these two couples, they see Mothman and they lose it. They lose it and they have to get the hell out of there, right? So they're driving like a really fast car. According to reports, they're driving like a 67 Chevy, you know, one of these cars that you hear in like a song that Eric Clapton wrote or something like that. So they can drive fast, and apparently they're doing 100 miles per hour, which is not crazy according to this type of car. And keeping up with them in flight is the Mothman. And so they're sort of like driving through the sort of outskirts of town around this TNT area that Jarvis was talking about earlier, reaching speeds up to 100 miles per hour, and he's keeping up with them. So they're sort of like going down this Highway 62. They're coming back in different directions, and they go all the way out to like the what is this word? The extent of town, right? Like the town limits. And all of a sudden they like lose it in a field. So they hightail it back and they go like right to the sheriff's office. And so like they report this, even though they're these no good, dirty, rotten teens, right? That are making out, doing whatever they're doing, they go right to the cops and they report what they had just seen. So apparently the sheriff who took the report knew these kids. He said that they were very honest kids. One of them, he knew the family really well. This man of the name of Roger Scarberry. And so Roger and Linda were one of the couples that were dating. They are actually still married at like today, or you know, they ended up getting married after their courtship and eating each other's assholes, whatever they were doing out there, falling in
Hand
love,
stuff,
fucking,
mouth stuff,
hell yeah,
whatever.
you know, whatever. Hey, it happens. I'm not here to kink shame. But they like, we have to go tell the cops. They tell the cops. The next day, Linda is actually brought to the hospital by her father because she was having a nervous breakdown. Roger himself said he's like, you know, I'm a tough guy, but I was terrified that night. You know, I picture like Fonzie. He's like, he's just
leather
like,
jacket,
you know,
all.
man.
Yeah.
I'm not usually fucking scared, but I was fucking terrified that night. I don't know. He should have a southern accent, not like
Yeah, he's talking like he's from over here.
Yeah.
yeah. But so terrified, they all report this thing. The cops could tell that the kids were actually scared by something. So they didn't just take it like it was some kids spewing nonsense or whatever, So take that as you will. Cops, So this TNT area is the part of town where a lot of these sightings take place. And over the next 13 months, there are over 100 reporting sightings of Mr. Mothman himself. Now, a lot of these reports are more unidentifiable than this first one that we talk about. The actual number of reported sightings may be much lower than 100, but when you're writing an article about Mothman sightings, 100 sounds cool.
Yeah.
So I think that might have a lot to do with some of that. There is one other specific identified sighting that I would like to talk about real quick. A man by the name of Merle Partridge. He's this really great guy who I've seen a couple of interviews with, just salt of the earth, West Virginia, gun toting, I'm gonna protect my land type of dude, right? Absolutely love this type of guy.
Yeah.
So he's from Salem, West Virginia, which is about 100 miles north of Point Pleasant. One night he's hanging out, he's watching TV, and around 10:30 the TV goes black. And all of a sudden, a herringbone pattern, according to him, comes on the screen, a bunch of triangles, and a high-pitched whining noise, much like a generator, is being emanated from the TV. And so, all of a sudden, outside on his front porch, his dog, a big German Shepherd, outside on the porch, gets up and starts barking towards the hay barn out in the yard. So Merle tries to get his dog to quiet down. Apparently, this dog normally would listen, but this night it was not listening. It gets up, and it darts off towards the hay barn. Merle gets up, he grabs his gun, he walks outside, not scared, obviously, ready to protect his dog, his land, and he never sees his dog again. He goes out to the barn. The dog is gone. He doesn't see, I think maybe he sees some red reflective eyes at one point when he's looking out his window, but once he's outside, he doesn't really see anything, he doesn't hear anything, but the dog is gone. This is a dog that listened really well, a strong German Shepherd, has absolutely vanished. Now, flash back to the Scarberry and Millette couples, the couples that we were talking about earlier, these ass-eating teens. They did see a dog on the side of Highway 62 while they were going in one direction. Reportedly, this is what they told the cops that night, too.
Not the boy band, right?
Yeah, no, not the boy band.
Okay.
Once they had turned back around, the dog seeming carcass, this dog was not moving on the side of the road. They were still being chased by Mothman, so who knows how much they saw. This dog was then gone on their return trip. Their much more leisurely return trip back to town once they had lost the Mothman and they were going to tell the cops. So that is an interesting little tidbit there, I think.
Totally.
Seen a couple of interviews with this dude, Merle. He just seems like this really cool guy. Cool in a very West Virginia sense. I hope that I can find more interviews of him after we've moved on from this. So that's basically the type of reports that you hear in that time frame. Now, there are other Mothman stuff, like we talked about the Chicago stuff. There's some people say that Mothman was a herald of sorts, right? Warning people of a disaster that is about to happen. There are Mothman-like creatures that apparently showed up at a mine in Germany before a mine collapsed and saved a bunch of miners. People saw Mothman at the nuclear plant in Chernobyl before the meltdown. There are actually 2 pictures of Mothman in New York on 9/11. These sure, I'm looking at them online now and they could be doctored, they could be photoshopped, but according to these sources, pictures of this Mothman, this herald, saying that disaster is about to happen.
Mothman's melt steel beams, guys.
Yeah, exactly. He's using his red eyes, he's melting beams, and he's trying to warn people of it. Is he an angel? Is he a devil?
Some could say both.
He's melting the
say
beams and warning people. Yeah. He's like, look out, guys, look what I'm doing.
What's gonna happen?
Well, you seem like you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
It's very true. It's very true.
Here I go, killing again.
So yeah, one other, I think, interesting thing about Mothman, before we move on to some of the other things that happened in Point Pleasant around this time, is that some people got pink eye when seeing Mothman. Which,
weird.
So there's a specific type of conjunctivitis called actinic or Klieg conjunctivitis, right? Which is very similar to your normal pink eye that you would just get, that you get in school because some other kid has fucking pink eye or whatever. This is due to prolonged exposure from Klieg lights or therapeutic lamps
Weird.
acetylene torches, so like welding arcs and stuff like that. So if you don't wear your welding mask or you use a therapeutic lamp too much, you can get this type of pink eye. There were a few people who came in close contact with Mothman, looked him in the eye. One woman actually reported having seen his face. There isn't that much description of the Mothman's face, right? He's dark, he's black, he's gray, he's brown. He hides into the shadows really nicely, right?
Yeah.
But people have reported of coming down with this specific type of conjunctivitis after coming into close contact with Mothman and looking him in the eye and getting that like ultraviolet red light in their face.
Crazy.
So yeah, but that's sort of the story, the type of sightings that people would see. Like I said, big dude, looks like fucking like he has big old bat wings or something, right? He flies around almost effortlessly, not like flapping the wings too much, but looks a little bit more clumsy when walking around on the ground, but can fly quickly and effortlessly. About 7 feet tall, massive wingspan, 10 to 12 feet wide. But yeah, that's the Mothman and how he ties in more specifically to Point Pleasant.
Interesting.
Sick.
There was other things going on in Point Pleasant at the time, right? Like, Mike, you're going to expand on that a little bit?
A little bit, baby.
Hell yeah. So Mothman wasn't it.
So here's where I was like, what the fuck? And I had to question all my beliefs up to this moment. So John was just talking about there were two towns kind of arguing between the grave diggers and then the ass eaters. Who saw Mothman first? 12th is the earliest date, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, growing up, being a big fan of all this nerdy stuff, I remember, like most other people I would imagine, about hearing like Mothman shows up, weird things start happening in Point Pleasant, the bridge collapses. And during the time between Mothman showing up and the bridge collapse, they say that people are seeing UFOs, weird stuff's happening in addition to, right?
Yeah.
So I started looking, and one of the things that comes up that's part of the Mothman lore that is mentioned a few times, and even like kind of main character in the Richard Gere blockbuster is this dude Indrid Cole. And somehow Indrid Cole is connected to the Mothman, and he's been helping with the prophecy. Like, this is all part of like the Mothman soup that I've been drinking all these years.
Yeah.
But when I started looking at the details of this shit,
Oh, he's getting whoa, look at him. He's
dude, I have
grinding
notes
his teeth.
like
He's grinding his
physical. I
teeth
have
while he
teeth.
talks.
He's getting heated.
This shit fired me up. So Indrid Cole, the first encounter with Indrid Cole is actually November 2nd of that year.
Okay.
This is 10 days prior to the first Mothman sighting.
Prior to the
So
ass
that right
eating
there
kids.
is like, it wasn't all of a sudden Indrid Cole shows up with the Mothman.
Yeah.
Indrid Cole showed up before the fucking Mothman got there, right? So this dude, Woodrow Derenberger. So he's like just
What a name.
salt of the earth, Pennsylvania dude. He's a salesman. He's driving back to his house in the Point Pleasant area from Ohio. And he's just driving home. I think it's like rainy night, whatever. He just worked all day. He's going home to his wife. Real picturesque idea of their 1960s family in my head.
Probably
And
going
his
home to
truck
eat ass,
is-
right? It sounds like
Yeah, dude,
in
he's
West
gonna have a
Virginia,
nice-
eating
but
ass
it's-
is the way to go.
It's huge. Yeah, it's huge.
But it's
It
a
started there.
home cooked ass.
Would you say
So-
home cooked ass?
It's a home cooked ass.
Oh, okay, that's the best kind.
So he's driving home from Ohio. This truck is tear-assing on the highway behind him, like pulls around, passes him in the other lane. And he sees that following closely to that truck is this flying craft. And he's like, holy shit. And the craft passes him following the truck that's speeding away. Is the truck running away from the craft? We don't know. But the craft pulls in front of Woody's truck. I don't know that he likes to be called Woody's, but he's dead. That's what I'm calling him.
They call him Woody and everything.
I'd call him Woody.
Pulling in front. I never met the guy. I don't know what he likes to be called. People are very sensitive about names. So they pull in front of Woody, but he's dead. They pull in front of Woody's truck, and he said it like kind of turns and then starts slowly lowering to the ground. And he said that it gave him enough time to slow his car down, but or his work truck down, but it made him come to a complete stop. And he kind of pulls off 2 tires to the side of the road, and then this dude comes from outside the side of this craft. I think the craft's supposed to be like 36 feet long, 9 feet wide, maybe. More of like the cigar shape idea than the saucer UFO.
Yep.
He even says later, I wouldn't describe it as a saucer, but it was definitely a fucking UFO. So this door opens, not a craft. He says not like the typical UFO, like up, down, on pins.
Yeah.
He said it's kind of like a side door. And then this dude gets out. He said, dude just looks regular dude. He's got an overcoat on. He's got slacks, but the overcoat is kind of like this shiny, dark blue material, like atypical material. Slick back, dark hair. And the guy's skin, like he looked normal, but he looked like he had a tan, like he was an outside, outdoors worker, right?
Yeah.
Comes over to the passenger side of the truck. And then he asks Woody to roll his window down. Now, in hindsight, Woody is saying, like, this is all coming in telepathically. Like, he doesn't think that the guy said anything. And he starts talking to Woody, and he's like, don't be scared. We, you have no reason to fear us. We're just like you. Like, we eat, we sleep, we breathe. I don't know. I got it written down. You can Google this shit if you want to know exactly what it says. And Woody's kind of like, what the, he's flipping out because of what he just saw. He's all tuned up. Now this kind of like slick back, neat looking guy is on the side of the road asking him questions. And as they're talking, there are vehicles still driving on the road passing him. And he said that the guy is kind of like half, he's giving him attention. It's like a normal conversation, but something slightly off. And he may or may not even be moving his mouth or his lips to talk to this guy. But the guy's looking at Woody, and then occasionally he'll turn his head. And then he asks him, what do you do for work? Do you have to work to live? Which I think is like, ooh, that's some Federation shit, right? Yeah. And then Woody answers that he's a salesman. And then Indrid Cold, who that's what he tells him his name is, so what's your name? My name is Wood Schmagenberger.
Sensitive?
And then
I thought they were sensitive about their name.
he's dead.
No remorse for the dead.
Fuck him, he's dead. The guy says that his name's Cold. And then he come to find out Indrid Cold is this dude's name. He says, what do you do for work? I'm a salesman. And then Indrid Cold describes himself as a searcher, right? Just like, what does that mean?
Like the old John Wayne movie, those searchers?
I'm a searcher. But very interesting. And you have nothing to fear from us. You'll be seeing us again. I think he lets himself know that he's kind of referencing the town that's a little bit in the distance. And he's like, what's that town called? And like names the town. He's like, we call that a gathering. Like
the Juggalos?
Interesting, weird stuff.
Whoop, whoop.
So, whoop, whoop.
Give me some of that Faygo.
I hope you like it. So what I didn't know, or I probably heard and just didn't really realize, but I started looking into, there's an interview. So Woodrow gets back to his house. He's flipping out. He tells his wife what happened. She can tell that like something definitely happened to her husband, and now she's a little bit nervous about it and uncomfortable. Like the thing with most of these sightings is like these human beings that are having this experience, whatever it's causing it. And then you can kind of tell, like you get a feeling from people. It's like some people have good bullshit detectors, some people have bad bullshit detectors. So a lot of the times, and especially what Keel, the author, is John Keel?
Yeah.
The dude that was like kind of the hero of the story that's following all this stuff, this reporter that's looking into all the Mothman stuff. He's writing some articles on it. He's kind of came in out of town to follow this up, and he gives a testament to this guy's character. It's being like, I got the feeling that whether or not there was a craft that landed, like a physical craft you could have gotten into, this dude genuinely believes that he had that experience. And then you got to kind of follow that where it leads. So it's like he wasn't hoaxing. He wasn't faking this. He truly believes that some dude calling himself Indrid Cole came down, talked to him on the side of the highway. And then he goes home, talks to his family, calls his buddy on the phone because this is like Point Pleasant, that area, especially back then, smaller town, smaller community. And on, I think this was November 3rd, 1966, live TV, Parkersburg, West Virginia, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they interview this dude. And you can hear the interview. The video's been lost. I guess there was an illustration of what he thought the craft looked like or something also lost. But they managed to save the tapes. So you can hear actual audio interview. We'll put that in the show notes of Woodrow Derenberger the day after he met Indrid Cole on the side of the highway on November 2nd, 10 days before anybody saw a Mothman. So this guy's on live TV, West Virginia, and he's like, this is what happened. I saw this stuff. The guy said, I'm going to see him again. I feel a little bit uncomfortable, like he's telling the truth. But I also think I'll be less nervous if it happens again, so I can ask him questions. Because he didn't make me feel scared. I was scared normally, and I think that had I asked him more, he would have told me more. So then what proceeds to happen after that point is Indrid Cole starts showing up at this dude's house. And he has way more encounters with this guy to the point where he would later go on and write a book about it. I have the book title in my notes. It is called, get ready for it, drum roll, Amazon.com, click through, get your money. I might not have it in here.
Oh, you blew it.
He wrote a book, Visitors from Lanulos.
Yes.
It was a book by, you knew it the whole time? You let me do it.
Yeah, you're letting him flounder. I like it.
Hey, you let me.
No,
you
I
let
just
the brothers drunk?
I
Oh,
couldn't remember
you
the name of the
sound
planet.
familiar.
I knew it was under the name of this because that's the planet that Indrid Cole said he was from.
Yeah.
Which is like, wild, just absolutely wild. So he writes this book. John Keel does the foreword to the book, just giving a testament to this dude Woodrow's character. And he was like, this is a real salty earth dude. He believed he had these experiences. He was not hoaxing. We cannot rule out hallucination. But this guy built this relationship with this alien, maybe, starting the very beginning of November. And then on the 10th, the Mothman shows up. 12th, whatever.
12th.
Yeah.
Whoever, 12th, 15th, whatever. Yeah.
Indrid Cole's there first, describing himself as a searcher. And what's got me so fired up right now was Indrid Cole looking for the Mothman.
Yep.
Is he a searcher? Is he an outside bounty hunter?
Right.
Is he some galactic military dude
Ooh, that's
that is
trippy.
looking for these creatures that have gotten loose on this planet?
That's what I like to
what's-
believe.
I love that
The other weird thing that starts happening is what would come to be described as the Men in Black start showing up. So these weird dudes.
Galaxy Defenders.
But these dudes were weird, right? And then this would begin and continue for decades after. But within this time frame, which in the 2-year November time frame, these dudes would show up after these sightings happen, and they're described as wearing very dark, very low-key, normal clothing. They would show up in Cadillacs and black cars and come and question the people, and they're not police, they're not army. They're described as having almost either tan skin like Indrid Cole or see-through, almost transparent skin where you can see their veins. Some of them have super long fingers, unnaturally long. Some dudes are showing up to witnesses' houses, asking to go into the basement, and then they'd go down there, and they'd be down there for sometimes hours, and the owner would go to ask on them, and they would either be gone completely or just staring up at the owner from the bottom of the stairs. They'd stop to eat in local diners and be described as not knowing how to use a fork and knife. One lady that encountered one said that she had to show him how to cut his steak, and and they wouldn't chew the food. They would just kind of swallow it. The license plates, every once in a while, someone would get a license plate, go to the local police office or whatever. That license plate was never issued. So John Keel this whole time is writing all this crazy shit down. The people are having encounters. There's local reporters writing stuff. He's writing these articles and he's describing these guys. John Keel's getting all fired up that these people are like showing up and asking questions like, who the hell, what government agency? All these local townspeople are like weirded out and they kind of shrink at the sign of authority. Whereas Keel wants to like call these dudes out, right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem is like small town, Pennsylvania, politeness, like no one's good. The odds of someone being like, who the F are you? Very low. They're just at the very least being civil, right? So no one really knows who it is. And then Keel's getting phone calls at his hotel and they're like, hey, the men in black are over here. You hop in his car, screw over there, but then they be gone already. He starts writing that they're showing up in Cadillacs. They start showing up in Volkswagens. Like this weird back and forth within that 2-year time period. Now, I couldn't pin down any real, like, juicy to the level of Derenberger UFO sightings, but you have more people in the town, like, looking up and saying they see things in the sky that aren't necessarily Mothman.
Yeah.
But you also have Mothman fever for this chunk of time in this town. Smaller town. You don't have Netflix to watch at night, so the local news is going to be a big deal. So you hear some guy talking about aliens or Mothman. You're looking up now.
Yeah.
You're going out, and every once in a while, you're taking a break from blah, 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 and you're looking out the window to see if you see anything. So whatever they see in the sky, they're going to be more likely to want to get in on this and be like, hey, there's a UFO. I saw one tonight. Oh, you see one? You want this to happen.
One more time.
Small town.
Can I see how you eat ass again?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, I'm going to move on.
For the people watching the stream?
So,
Okay, or not.
can
Pay
check-
extra.
Yeah.
yeah, that's paid. That's high level Patreon.
You gotta buy-
I go through the basics.
Subscribe to our
Been married
Patreon,
a long
please.
time. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you gotta subscribe to our OnlyFans.
I'm not like a man in black. I know how to use a fork and knife. So
Wait, you use a fork and knife to eat ass?
listen, it took
Yeah,
you too long
what
to
the
do that. My Dom DeLuise disease is acting up. So there's a bunch of people, pretty much everyone that reports seeing Mothman gets a visit in one way or another. A couple people are threatened. Some lady, I think it was one of the Scarberries or one of the other local ladies, says this dude in a puffy wig and a truck tried to drive her off the road. There's another lady that gets like a threatening note under her door after having a run-in with the Men in Black that essentially says, like, if I want to, I can get you, girl, or something like that. And I don't think it was like a love thing.
Yeah.
I think it was a threat.
Yeah, it doesn't
So
sound
if I-
romantic.
So
None of this is
This stuff
covered in
is-
the movie, by the way.
Nope.
None
No,
of,
no,
none
it's
of
a
what
bit.
we've been talking about is in the Mothman prophecies.
and that's what I'm saying. It's like the more I read into it, the more it's like it hurts that they could have gone into, and I want to go into more. I made personal notes on me to read this guy's book. I found a reference. So in the Woodrow Derenberger interview, the guy that's interviewing him from the TV show asked him if he's familiar with what I would find out was described as like the original shock jock. This dude Pine with a Y, so Pyne. And he used to do like a kind of like Joe Pine.
Yeah.
So they're asking Derenberger if he's ever seen Joe Pine show, and he's like, yeah, I'm familiar with him, but I don't think I've seen it. So there's an episode that I've been trying to find for the past few days that I have not had success with yet. Joe Pine show, episode 37. And this is the one the guy interviewing Woodrow references, saying that there was this dude, James Mosley, on the Joe Pine show describing craft. So this is prior to Indrid Cole on another show. They're talking about UFOs, and it's made the interviewer think of when he was asking Woodrow questions. So it's like there's a weird like extra information that is like, why haven't people looked into that more?
Yeah.
At least if they have, why isn't this public information? So these are all like threads. I'm like, oh, I want to read this. 2016, this dude. So even beyond the 2 years, I think that dude Woodrow was having meetings with Indrid Cole, and as far as I know, nothing to do with like Mothman or the bridge or any of that shit. This is just like, hey, we're from another planet. Two hunters stationed themselves, I think, outside of. So Woodrow goes on the news.
Yeah.
And then his story starts spreading around the town, and everybody's in. Mothman's going on. It's all the crazy. So they want to get a piece of this, and this keeps on going. So these two hunters hear about it. They hear the injured cold keeps going to this dude's house. So they set themselves up with rifles outside this dude Woody's house without him knowing, waiting to see something, waiting for the Mothman to show up, waiting to be able to shoot it and take it, and protect their town. Get revenge for the dog. I don't know if it was the same dude. I didn't, I want to look that up now too.
Yeah, Merle.
I want to look that up, see if that was one of the dudes that was outside. They said all they saw was a guy in a black Volkswagen show up, go to the door, talk to Woody for a few minutes. I think maybe gave him a hug or something, or maybe I just interject that mentally in the story because I'm so traumatized after this year. And then walk away, which kind of like says that is what he said he was experiencing. They were like, oh, it's all bullshit then, because the dude didn't have moth wings.
Yeah.
But they witnessed a man in black show up. He could have been selling vacuum cleaners. Maybe he was a salesman friend. But to me, that's that's corroboration, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And he's saying this kind of tan dude is showing up, and the guy they described kind of sounded like the injured Cole that he had described. And they're not putting surveillance, but had you set up a Ring camera at the neighbor's house, you might have video footage of it, right?
Sure.
But it just wasn't around back then.
Yeah.
So to tie this all up in a horrific bow hold on, let me get to the tragedy. I'm not good at this stuff.
Hey, how you
December
computer?
15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge, which was an I-bar chain suspension bridge built in 1928, carried U.S. Route 35 over the Ohio River, connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and Gallipolis, Ohio. December 15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed under the weight of rush hour traffic, resulting in the deaths of 46 people. 2 of the victims were never found. Investigators of the wreckage pointed to the cause of the collapse being a failure of a single I-bar in a suspension chain due to a small defect 0.1 inches or 2.5 millimeters deep. Bridge was carrying much heavier loads than originally been designed for and had been poorly maintained. Collapsed bridge was replaced by the Silver Memorial Bridge in 1969. So December 15th, 2 years after the confirmed date, 2 years and a month after the first official
Well, a year
date
and a
of the
month.
Mothman,
A year and a month.
66?
A year and a month.
Year and a month.
Just a little 13 months.
13 months. Unlucky or lucky 13 months. 46 deaths. And then as the Mothman stories go, like the Mothman lore, that's the end, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the end. That's all.
No
that's
more
all she
Mothman
wrote.
sightings in the town
He
after
was-
the bridge.
So he's forecasting the bridge, warning everybody. But what I also found out, the Indrid Cole story starts before the Mothman. The Indrid Cole story arguably ends after the Mothman. Because 2 days, I think, after the bridge collapse, I'm using the Mothman.fandom.com for references. That will also be in the show notes. So,
Wait, you mentioned how many
I'm trying to
died
find the
on that
exact
bridge?
thing.
You mentioned
46.
46.
Two bodies were never found.
So that 46 includes the 2 that never showed up?
I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's got it right.
We also don't know anybody living under the bridge that was unhoused and hurt.
Maybe those
and
2 people
unaccounted
got
for.
brought to Atlantis and they're now Aquaman and...
Or Lanulos.
Yeah, or Lanulos, yeah.
Straight to Lanulos.
Indrid could have grabbed him.
Right. Thank you for your patience. On the afternoon of December 22nd, 1967, during Christmas week after the local Silver Bridge disaster, 2 men walk into Mary Heyer, the local reporter that had been covering a lot of the Mothman stuff. They walk into her office. They were short and wore black overcoats, had dark complexions and Eastern features. They were not interested in the bridge disaster, but wanted to know about the UFO reports in the area. Mary hands them a large folder of like press clippings and everything that she had written about and the local papers had. They were not very interested in it. They asked her what she would do if someone ordered her to stop writing about UFOs. She basically said she'd continue anyway. The two men look at each other. She goes back to her work, and when she looks up again, they're gone. So this is after the bridge. The men in black are still sniffing around and like theoretically could have threatened her then. Gets weirder because later the same afternoon, there's another strange dude that walks into Mary Hyer's office. He introduced himself as Jack Brown. They say he's 5'7", black piercing eyes, unruly black hair, and long fingers. His complexion was darker than the previous two, but he had like similar facial features to them. He wore an ill-fitting, cheap black suit with an oddly knotted tie. He claimed to be a UFO researcher and once again asked Hire what she'd do if someone asked her to stop writing her articles. So Mary's like, what the fuck? You know, this is the third asshole now that's come in here. And she was like, are you with the other two assholes? And he starts stammering. And he said he didn't know them. And he asked about the John Keel, the author and reporter had been kind of cover this. And her witnessing UFOs in the area. He wanted to know where John Keel was and wanted Mary to take him to the sighting location. So this weird, greasy, 5'7" dude shows up in a suit that doesn't fit to this reporter's office. Is like, "Where's the guy that wrote this? Can you take me on a drive to the place you saw the Mothman?" Like, the dude's fucked up. After the other two dudes, like, kind of creepily. So this is like capital creep. City going on. So she told this guy essentially she's not taking him on a tour of the town and that she's going home, and she told him to get the fuck out and that you'd have to look around the town by yourself. The strange man then visited the home of several witnesses in the area. So this is like later in the day. So this is getting close to or after supper time. And now this dude starts showing up. He shows up at the ass-eating teenagers' houses, as well as like the other person that saw the Mothman by the TNT place or whatever. He said they said that he made them super uncomfortable, right? So like they're trying to eat dinner, and this is after 46 people in the town have died. Then all of a sudden you got to knock at the door. And then this dude shows, "Hello, I would like to talk to you about the Mothman."
Get out of here. We're trying to eat ass in peace.
Yeah, is he an Adam Sandler character?
Yeah.
Hello. Oh, you're the Mothman.
You get really hairy balls.
So he starts, like, his story changes. Because it's a small town, right? And these are all kind of know each other. It's like, hey, did you see them? Hey, did you see them? He brought a tape recorder, yet they say he seemed completely unfamiliar with how to use it. Right? So it's like, what the hell is... And his story changes. He starts saying, like, early in the evening, he said he didn't know Keel, but later on he claimed they were good friends. You know, it's be like, "Do you know who John Keel is? Could you introduce me to him?" "Oh, me and John go way back." You know, and just like greasy long fingers, like trying to like futz with the hold on, let me press the right button.
I imagine a Tommy Wiseau type of character when you described him originally. Just
It's not a pity party, it's a regular party. So even though he said he was from Cambridge, Ohio, but then he admitted he didn't know where Columbus, Ohio was, even though they're just a few miles apart. Jack Brown eventually drives off into the night, never heard from again.
spooky.
Wild.
Never heard from again until he put out The Room in 2001.
That's where he got all his money. He was robbing those houses.
Yeah, he's stealing all that money so he could make his feature film.
You ever hear the theory that Tommy Wiseau is oh god, who's that guy who jumped from the plane with all that money? DB Cooper.
DB Cooper, yeah.
What if Tommy Wiseau is actually injured cold?
Okay, that would make a lot of sense.
That would make a ton of sense because Tommy Wiseau is definitely an alien.
Right. Doesn't really know how to fit in with normal society.
Wears a lot of belts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Greasy.
Oh, hi,
looking.
Mothman.
I love it. I did not abduct them. I did not.
Did not.
Oh, Tommy. God damn. So that was interesting. Those are some cool.
A lot of weird shit that happened in, like, you know, because if you go with the first date of Mike's stuff to the last date, it's still 13, 14 months, you know? A crazy wild time for that small town.
Yeah.
I think Indrid Cold was hunting Mothman.
Yeah, I agree. I'm
That's
with
a
you there 100%.
super interesting perspective.
I like that he said he was a searcher. The searcher.
What does that mean?
Really,
Yeah.
really tipped it off for me.
Like
personally.
that almost makes him sound like he's a galactic bounty hunter, like a
Sure.
like Mando.
I want to go. I haven't read the book.
Right, John Keel's book.
No, not John Keel's book.
Oh,
Woodrow Derenberger. Fuck
okay.
John Keel at
He's
this
got a book
point.
as well.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
talks
To read
right to
that.
the source. We see what happens when you go
Sure,
through
sure.
John Keel. You get
Yeah.
Slappy Hamster
Right.
butt.
Yeah. John Keel's book though is the Mothman prophecies, right?
Is the
That's
Mothman
it.
Yeah, I haven't read that
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
Yes.
Have you any of you guys read that?
No,
Negative.
I don't know how to
I want
read.
to. I'm going to read both these books now. Because potentially, Derenberger's Derenberger's great work. Potentially, his book could answer more questions specific to Cole, right? If he had counters and he's telling them he's from Lanulos and some shit,
Yeah.
maybe everything gets explained, you know? And it's like, what a weird coincidence if they are completely separate. And then, you know, the searcher just means he's searching for someone to write a book about him.
Maybe.
And then Mothman was there just to warn about the bridge. You know,
Just
what a
unrelated.
coincidence that they're both happening the same time.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, that's the thing, because I feel like it's fun to get like really tied up in it and do a bunch of research, watch the movies, watch documentaries, podcasts, and you really like, because I'm like, I think I am generally a little bit more skeptical maybe than a lot of people when they looks into this, but like I'm 100% sold on Mothman. I love it. I'm like, Indrid Cold was the searcher, but some people are a little bit more skeptical.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And I hate to break this to you guys, but Mothman was, according to Dr. Robert Smith, an associate professor of wildlife biology at West Virginia University in 1966.
Wait a minute. Is that the singer of The Cure?
Of The Cure? Yeah, that's what I was
Oh, I have no idea. Is that
the same
name
guy?
of the guy from The Cure? No, I don't
That
think
is
it
his
is. It
name.
might be. Well, anyway, according to Dr. Robert
I mean,
L.
Tom DeLonge's
Smith,
a UFO guy now. Sorry, go ahead.
he said that the description of the Mothman at the same time was that of a sandhill crane. So, a sandhill crane is a marshland bird that's native to southern and western United States. And now you might think, well, that's not really near West Virginia, because when I mean southern, I mean like down in like Florida and Louisiana. However, sandhill cranes are very famous vagrants who migrate frequently and have been recorded as traveling as far as Europe and China. So already, it's totally possible one could have ended up in Point Pleasant. So
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Sandhill
Agreed. That one could be.
yeah, Sandhill crane, average height is between 2 and 4.5 feet. Some of the very biggest come around 5 feet. Average wingspan is between 5.5 to 7.5 feet.
Oh, wow.
This is a big bird, right? So they have a coat that ranges from white to dark, and because of from white to like a dark gray, and due to various environmental factors like dirt or algae, their feathers can take on sometimes like a red or brown or greenish tint. And one of the most iconic features of the sandhill crane is their eyes, or in this case, it's not even the eyes themselves, it's the area around their eyes. So sandhill cranes, when they reach adulthood, they lose kind of the feathers around their eyes and they develop this like red fleshy mass that's around their eyes, and it's a big bright red, like a bright holiday red that's visible even in very poor lighting conditions. So according to Dr. Smith, he said that this is likely what viewers of Mothman mistook for glowing red eyes. So there's no officially documented sightings in West Virginia of the Sandhill Crane. And obviously the creature's not a one-to-one of the visual reports, so the most obvious discrepancy is Sandhill Cranes, it's a crane. It's got a long neck and a small head, whereas Mothman is reported to, most of the time either small neck or no neck. However, to kind of add some credence to why it could be some type of bird, so amongst the very first initial wave of Mothman sightings, so you have that first sighting of like
Mothman
those
wave.
teenagers, then next couple days some other people. What? Hello? Do you guys lose me?
Mothman wave.
Am I here?
No, Mike just said Mothman wave really quickly.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you said, Mitch, we lost you. I don't know how I got. Anyway, let me. So during the first Mothman wave, if you will, the Mothman flap, I think is what they call it. So, amongst the initial sightings were 2 volunteer firefighters. One was named Paul Yoder, and another one was Benjamin Enox. And they reported seeing the same creature that other people are seeing, but the way they described it was it's a very large bird that they were not familiar with. So, now, about this whole size thing, because Mothman is supposed to be like 6-7 feet tall and, has this 10-foot wingspan. So here's the thing, right? You got maybe an exotic bird in this location that people are totally unfamiliar with. It's not native to the area. And when it's dark out and you're already spooked because you're seeing something you've never seen before, especially in the 60s, it's not like there's the internet and you can go look up what a Sandhill Crane is. Your only chance of probably seeing one was if you ever saw like a nature book or something, right? So it's a well-known studied phenomenon. There's multiple studies about this, that when you're under stress and when you're, reacting to fear, the human mind will see shit. And if it can't properly assess what you're looking at, you'll start to ascribe like unnatural, freakish features to things. And anybody who's ever been spooked by like a shadow after watching a scary movie at night, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't lie. So, that was the official explanation, if you will, of what Mothman was. However, there's probably a better bird that's the candidate for the Mothman sightings. So, Mothman was probably an owl in all aspects. So, first of all, think of a silhouette of an owl, right, with its wings outstretched. It kind of has pretty much like a 1-to-1 ratio of proportions, aside from like size, with Mothman. It's got the round head that's all no neck. It's got the wide outstretched wings, right? And unlike Sandhill Cranes, owls are native to West Virginia. They're pretty common sights, and they have a lot in common with descriptions of the Mothman. So the most common owl in West Virginia is called the barred owl, like barred, like striped. And it's found within the Point Pleasant area. And the first big giveaway of why Mothman was probably people seeing this owl is that this owl's eyes will reflect light and glow red in the dark. So like the eye shine of that owl comes as bright red when lights like car headlights or flashlights are reflected at it. So barred owls get their name, like I said, from they have like a white coat that's broken up by stripes of either gray or brown or black, which explains a lot of the color, descriptions of Mothman that range from, hey, sometimes Mothman was white, sometimes it was black, sometimes it was brown, And also, barred owls are kind of large for an owl. They have an average height of around 2 feet, which is pretty big for an owl. And they have a wingspan between 3 and 4 feet. And like I said, when you're under stress, when it's dark out, when you're making out in your car and you get spooked by a fucking bird that you weren't expecting to see, and you can't really see it that well, and its eyes are glowing red, and you think you're looking at Satan himself, all of a sudden, that tiny bird looks like a monstrous humanoid creature ready to kill you. So, barred owls also match some other characteristics of Mothman. So, Mothman is described by witnesses as being like this clumsy and awkward runner that, it seems to like stumble and lurch forward as it runs. So here's the thing. If you've never seen an owl like actually run on the ground. There's videos of it. I highly suggest you look up an owl running, because man, do they look clumsy as fuck. So the way they run is they like move forward with like this lurching. It almost looks like they're hunched over and this like half trotting, right? And the way it's not actually clumsy. They're doing that to like, because they need to maintain balance, and also that stance helps them generate lift when they start to fly off the ground. But to someone who doesn't know what they're looking at, it's gonna look like, you know, some weird looking thing that's moving awfully clumsy. And they also got
And another parallel
yeah.
is both Mothman and Owl hate bridges.
Oh, I don't know if that's true. I don't think that is. But so also barred owls, similar head and body shape, right? It's also entirely possible that the barred owl that was living up near the polluted TNT area might have even been deformed or had some type of disease that warped its appearance. So this thing could have had mange, or it could have been molting, which would cause the owl to lose like most of its plumage. So if you've never seen an owl without feathers or without plumage, you should look that shit up too, because it's like super alien looking. It's almost totally unrecognizable. If you saw something like that, you wouldn't know what you're looking at right away. So, however, to make things even a little more interesting, the Mothman sightings might have not even been a barred owl. So during the Mothman sightings, towards the end of it, around the same time that the bridge collapsed, a white owl was shot and killed by a man named Asa Henry. And this owl was identified as being a very out of place snowy owl. So snowy owls are found way up fucking north, right? And known for their stark white color, which some Mothman descriptions of this thing are, you know, stark white. And obviously, this thing would be totally exotic to the people of Point Pleasant. In fact, I'm even baffled as how this thing got down there. So, snowy owls are considered, they're very large. They're considered either the 5th or the 3rd largest owl, depending on what you're using for the qualifications, whether it's height or wingspan. So the average height of a snowy owl is just above 2 feet tall. And that's the size of the one that Asa Henry killed. But snowy owls also have a massive wingspan that average between 4 and 6 feet. And some of the largest ones can get up to like 7 feet. So the one that Asa Henry killed had a wingspan of around 5 feet. And today you can see that owl at Point Pleasant's River Museum. So according to Asa Henry's own grandson, his grandfather shooting that owl actually coincides perfectly with the end of the Mothman flap in 1967. So, but let me hit you with a little bit of a different theory now. And this is where we're going to touch on some of the UFO stuff in the Men in Black. So,
Go on.
Mothman, what if I told you that maybe this had something to do with the Cold War? So, here's an interesting theory that I've seen around, and I think that there might be maybe some underlying truth to all this stuff, is that Mothman sightings might have been related either directly or indirectly to the Cold War, and the testing of new technology by the U.S. or the Soviets. So this theory kind of lines up, in my opinion, everything perfectly as far as like a skeptical explanation for everything that was going on. So Mothman, as it's described, roughly humanoid shape, similar in size to a man. It's got a large wingspan, and these wings are almost always folded in or completely outstretched. And when the creature takes flight, a lot of the times it's described as it takes off straight up, accelerates when it's, you know, horizontal flight, going even up to speeds of 100 miles an hour. It never, if ever, flaps its wings while flying. It's like always gliding. So I don't know about you guys, but to me, that kind of reminds me of modern jetpacks and with wings and some dude in a flight suit. So modern
And red eyes would be the night vision.
I'll get to that. Yeah, that's one possible explanation. There's another one too that people probably wouldn't even think of. That's also what it could be. So, you know, jetpacks, a lot of people think of them as new technology. They're not. They were already in existence in 1966. So the first patented jetpack was actually in 1919 by a Russian inventor named Alexander F. Andreev. And since then, both the US government and the Soviets were experimenting with jetpack technology. So in 1960, the Bell rocket belt gets invented, which could propel an individual upwards and horizontally using hydrogen-based gases, turbojet engines, or pretty much any other kind of rocket. It was a very flexible system, and that was a great interest to the military throughout the 60s. So, as we all kind of know, military technology tends to be like way ahead of consumer technology. So, to me personally, I think it's entirely possible that, you know, the wingsuits and the wing packs that we see nowadays in like videos on YouTube, that shit was probably being experimented with and around in the 60s by the government. And you know, what better place to try that shit out than a secluded, abandoned old munitions storage place that no one's really supposed to be around.
Yeah.
So, as for the
is that the same jetpack that was in James Bond too? Is it the same jetpack that
Thunderball?
Sean Connery was that the one?
Thunderball, yeah.
Yeah, where he has like the crazy looking, it's like looks like tinfoil coming out.
Kind of. I don't know if that's the same exact one, but it's probably based on that one.
Yeah.
Right? And
I mean, that Bond movie was in the 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yep. And the thing is, the Bell rocket belt, right? That's like the consumer publicly known about jetpack.
Sure.
Who the hell knows what the fucking U.S. government was playing around with, or even the Soviets? I'm gonna get to the Soviets later and why it could have easily been fucking them, right? So, as for the coloration of Mothman, first of all, if that dude's in a wing pack or a jetpack, he's gonna be wearing a flight suit, and most of the time, flight suits, light in color, tend to be, you know, white or gray. Sometimes they might be black, but not always. That individual would likely be wearing headgear or a helmet of some kind of so like something like goggles or a visor, right? Or a helmet. That would give his head a rounded appearance, especially if it was a helmet. And it might even make it look like he has no neck to observers.
Yeah.
So, and it's also possible, like Mike was saying, like with the red eyes, right? One thing it could be is he might be wearing reflective anti-laser eyewear. And you might be like, lasers? Well, think about it. Like, if you're told all the time, hey, never point like a laser pointer at a plane, because that shit will 100% reach the plane and could shine in the pilot's eyes, right? That's dangerous. And these goggles, so they have these goggles that are anti-laser goggles. That and laser technology was around in the 60s. It wasn't publicly available, but you know, the United States had it, Soviets had it, anybody who was advanced at that time had it. And what these goggles look like, or what a visor of the same thing would look like, is they'd be these big bright red lenses, and they're reflective, so any light they shoot at it, they're going to shoot back at what's shooting at it. So, because it's not getting absorbed into the lens and going into the person's eyes. So, that could easily explain the, you know, big glowing red eyes that they're seeing on this dude in a wingsuit that they were never supposed to see in the first place. And also, it could be totally possible. So, like, especially because it's laser technology, which is something that these people, number one, wouldn't even know existed in the real world, because they've never heard of lasers outside of like a B movie in the drive-in, you know what I mean? And number two, it could be possible maybe they were testing laser stuff at the same time and were testing that shit on the guy in the wingsuit, right? So, and it might not have even been the US that was doing this shit. So this is the 60s. This is happening right in the middle of the Cold War, and Soviet espionage within the U.S. was not nearly as unheard of as you might think. So in 1947, Soviet espionage was so rampant in the U.S., they were on our soil with like fucking stuff, with their technology, like using it and testing it, that Truman had to sign an executive order ordering government agencies to like actively combat against it. So,
Damn.
yeah. So, what would the Soviets gain from espionage in a shitty little town like Point Pleasant? Well, first, they might be surveying the land, looking for, good targets to, in case things went to nuclear warfare or went to actual full-blown warfare. Or they might be engaging in psychological warfare, or they might be more interested in that power plant. They know there's a munitions area there. They probably don't know it's abandoned, so they go and check it out. Next thing you know, there's Soviet dudes flying around in fucking wing packs checking out the power plant, and some horny teenagers see it and think it's a fucking scary Batman. So it could have very easily been either the US government or the Soviets. And to me, that also explains a great deal of why you have, these guys in black suits who are coming around with like these weird accents and aren't super familiar with customs, especially if they're Russian, right? Who are real interested in hearing about the UFO that you saw and about the Mothman sighting that you saw, and also saying like, hey, maybe it'd be better if you said that you didn't see this, because again, if it's Russians, they don't want you to be blabbing about their fucking secret plans. And if it's the government testing their new shit, they don't want you blabbing about all the new technology they got to everybody. Or if it's the Russians, the US government doesn't want you telling everybody about the fucking Russians that you saw, because they're trying to keep that shit under wraps.
Well, let's be real, guys. We all know that the Russians were just spying on all the teenagers eating ass. That's all they were looking for.
Oh, sure.
The only reason they were here, there was no Mothman. It was all teenagers eating ass.
So,
they just wanted to cover the fact that they were spying on these teenagers.
So also UFO sightings, that could have been fucking covert jets that they were testing. That could have been all sorts of crazy stuff. So you can't rule a lot of that stuff out. Now, here's I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I'm going to cast a little bit of shade at my guy John Keel here.
Oh, shit, John. You hear that?
Boo.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, but this is all of this is so... It's just interesting to hear this kind of perspective, because we haven't done this a lot on the show.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of fun to think of these like sort of paranormal things, but in reality, they're probably more rooted in reality, like Mitch is talking about. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. So to wrap this all up, I'm going to throw a little bit of shade at my guy John Keel, and mad respect for the dude. Personally, I think there's a little more truth to his work than some other people think, but this is what the skeptic would have to say. So Keel had a very avid interest in UFOs and aliens and the paranormal well before he started investigating the Mothman. So according to Keel, he was in the army during the Korean War, and he says that while he was there, he was trained as a propaganda writer and a distributor. So in 1957, he writes a book about his exploits in Egypt and India, where he's looking for answers to like secret magic tricks, like the Indian rope trick or the Egyptian rope trick or whatever it is, where like the guy's playing the flute and then the rope rises out of the basket and goes straight up and stuff. And he also went like searching for the Yeti, and he wrote a book about that. So Keel was also a big proponent of extraterrestrial visitations, although he claims he abandoned that hypothesis in the 60s, and instead he believed in ultra-terrestrials, which were non-physical, not necessarily physical beings that came to Earth and were able to manipulate matter and consciousness and all that kind of stuff, and used to masquerade as fairies and demons in the past. Now, to the believer, right, who better to show up at the time of the Mothman sightings and all these UFOs to investigate it than John Keel? But also, in the mind of the skeptic, of course, who's better to show up at the time of Mothman sightings and UFOs to investigate them than fucking John Keel, right? So
that's so great.
Keel,
that is so great.
So Keel is where the bulk of the information that about Mothman and about UFOs and about Men in Black and about Injured Cold are all coming from, right? Barring the other guy's book for a second, right? So Keel might have had a little bit of a vested interest in maybe embellishing, if not outright fabricating, some more bizarre events in order to either maintain his worldview or also to further potential book sales. So, in a 2002 article of the Skeptical Inquirer, there was a bunch of private letters between Keel and another UFO researcher at the time named Gray Barker that were dated during the Mothman investigation. And the Skeptical Inquirer, the guy who wrote the article, analyzed them and presented his findings. And basically what was found was that there were, number one, significant differences between what Keel was telling Gray Barker at the time and what he inevitably ended up writing in his book. So like differences between sightings, differences in information, all that kind of stuff. And then one of the big finds is that Keel was collaborating with Barker with an early version of his Mothman book. And at one point, Barker, who's giving Keel information, openly admits to fictionalizing some accounts that he had heard either second or third hand. So, to throw some credibility back at Keel, he did like admonish Barker for this, and that kind of ended their relationship and they cut ties. But it does stand to kind of reason or question, you know, was Keel someone who was kind of so caught up in his worldview that he may have intentionally or unintentionally misrepresented information? Because is it confirmation bias? He's out there looking for all these aliens and all these creepy things and fucking looking for ultra-terrestrials and looking for harbingers of doom. And, you know, he's getting these reports of these owls and fucking the U.S. government's trying to keep fucking Soviet espionage under wraps, and he's seeing it all as aliens, dude. It's all aliens. It's all aliens. And he's writing it down in his book, and he's getting bullshit stories from this other guy that undoubtedly got mixed in. So you can kind of see why someone who's super skeptical of the Mothman stuff, why they would believe that this thing was a total crock of bullshit. Almost none of it was actually legit. The only thing that I can't come up with, like, a skeptical thing for is the whole Indrid Cold thing, aside from the fact that maybe that dude was fucking hallucinating or he made that shit up. But, you know, I don't know what that could have been. Personally,
I want whatever he's having.
Yeah. Personally, like I said, I think there's a little more of a paranormal element here than the skeptical element. But also, I would not be surprised whatsoever, based on my research, if Mothman really was people seeing a fucking snowy owl that they've never seen before, and if there were the U.S. government testing jetpacks at this old munitions plant, and people kept seeing that shit, right? And
I did not know about the propaganda thing until you said it.
yeah, crazy, right?
That was the first I'd heard of it. And he got one of the things I read about him. He got, for a UFO quote unquote writer, he got like a cushy job after that in the government.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like for the National Archives or something. You know what I mean?
No, I don't want to start rumors, but what if Keel was working for the Russians, writing propaganda to cover their shit up? You know, I'm not saying he was. I don't think he would be,
Right.
but you know, you never know.
Someone who's so well versed in that type of subject that is basically trying to like reprogram people's like belief.
Yeah.
You know, it's so there's so many levels to that.
Yeah.
So one quote from Keel that I remember that really, really resonated with this idiot. He was describing like not extraterrestrials, but ultra-terrestrials or whatever he said.
Yeah.
And he said that he called them tricksters playing simple tricks on simple minds. Now, if that wasn't like a little nudge, and like
nod to the author.
I love the whole idea of like, hello, boss. Yeah, we test jetpack, but we have problem. Teenagers tonguing bung may have seen us, and then they're like, get John Keel down there.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that's, then it covers all that shit
and
up.
he, he just happens to show up in that town right after more, almost like he knew. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then I did read that one of the sightings claimed to see the Mothman return to a military base,
Ooh.
and that he was possibly using that as his nest. Did you guys, any of you guys see that?
I've heard that, yes.
So that, like, yeah, if Homeboy's testing a jetpack, he's going back to the base.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh man. Well, that was
So you heard it here
Fascinating.
first, everybody. Fucking Silver Bridge was a false flag.
The false flag was melted by John Keel's eyes. He was walking around with some laser goggles.
Yeah,
These
reflected
melted
off.
steel beams in Silver Bridge. And one day we'll get to visit it all.
Yep.
We'll go. We'll visit the bunkers.
fast forward to
We'll visit the
9/11,
new
and there's
bridge.
John Keel hanging out,
Yeah.
shooting lasers at the Twin Towers.
Go to the Mothman Museum, and then we'll go see the actual Mothman at the Nature Museum.
Yeah, well,
The alleged snow.
The snowy owl. I genuinely want to.
The snowy owl.
I looked up pictures, but I couldn't find a picture of it. But I genuinely want to see the snowy owl.
Yeah, I've seen snowy owl in real life. It's kind of wild to think that anyone. I mean, sure, like there's so many other like variables here.
Yeah.
But, like to confuse a 2-foot owl for a 7-foot man seems like wild, you know.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about these sort of eyewitnesses, like the Merle guy that I was talking about earlier, like a hunter.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time out hunting, knew what animals looked like in the dark.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, we know that owls are real. We do not know that Mothman is real.
Yeah.
So you gotta take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
really do. So.
Honestly, if it
I'm
was
going
really a
jetpacks.
bird, then it was probably people seeing multiple different kinds of birds.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Mutation stuff, the TNT area, like who knows? He was drinking red water.
Oh yeah,
Seeping
that's
out
right.
of the ground.
I wanted to just briefly mention that too. So Jarvis, you had mentioned that like people could have been drinking fucking contaminated water and making them see
Yeah.
shit. That is totally possible. That is
Absolutely.
absolutely totally possible.
What about the animals too? I mean, the animals
Yeah.
could be affected, like you said. Their feathers could have fallen out, and that's why they looked so crazy.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Anything could have
Dude,
come out of that.
I'm telling you, look up an owl without feathers. That shit looks like an alien.
It does. It or like a dinosaur. It looks like a fucked
it's
up
creepy.
dinosaur.
It's creepy.
If I could sprinkle another little spice in the pie, I Googled this. The MK Ultra operation was officially sanctioned in 53, reduced in scope in 64, further curtailed in 67.
Ooh, interesting.
Ooh, so that itself, MK Ultra that has to be an episode we have to do. By the way, that is
Seems to be
so
a lot
deep.
of things that we can branch off and talk
Yeah.
about, like harbingers of death and different stuff like that. And MK Ultra.
MK Ultra's a whole
government-
episode.
Government conspiracies and Cold War stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of good branches that we can work with.
Heck yeah.
Holes are always deeper.
Yeah, absolutely.
The holes are always deeper.
So in my intro, I actually forgot I had two little tidbits that I wanted to throw in. Nothing really to do with the Mothman, but more two famous people that came out of Point Pleasant that you might know about. And one of them was one of the early settlers of Point Pleasant, which was Samuel B. Clemens, which if you guys aren't familiar with that name, that's actually he's the grandfather of Mark Twain.
Interesting.
And they migrated from Virginia to Point Pleasant way back when it was first settled. And Samuel was actually killed in 1805 by a falling log when he was raising a house in West Virginia. So I thought that was a little fascinating. And then the other name is Karl Probst, who was born in Point Pleasant. He was the automotive engineer credited in 1940 with the design of the Jeep. Which is a military vehicle.
Look at us connecting dots that shouldn't be connected.
So he could be tied in there somehow. I mean, having to do with the Jeep.
Yeah.
So
They're flying around on Jeep packs.
yeah, they've got Jeep back. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was just a flying Jeep flying through the air, and people thought it was a Mothman, had red headlights or something.
The doors were open. They thought it was wings.
Yeah.
People are stupid.
People are
Stupid
dumb.
people.
I mean,
Simple
if they-
tricks for simple minds, man.
If they're drinking that TNT water, then they got to be pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, just fun little fact that I forgot to interject earlier in the
This is
episode.
so good. This stuff is so juicy. Like going back and looking at this stuff again with the internet and fresh eyes, it's like, so much fun.
Yeah, it was fun. And watching the movie was definitely fun. As bad as that film was, we encourage you guys to listen to our social commentary that we will also be releasing. Probably around this episode, right? Was that the plan?
No, probably before it
Before
because
it?
you spent 10 minutes saying it was terrible and no one should
That's
watch
true,
it.
yeah. So we'll do it
yeah.
first.
So hopefully, if you haven't seen it yet, go back and watch it.
Yeah.
Join in on the fun with us.
And we tried to
we had a
sync it
good time
up
for
for you guys. We gave you a little bit of a countdown. So if you guys want to watch it along with us, at least be close to where we sync up, you guys can watch it with us and see how awful that film is.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
a lot of laughs. You can just listen and laugh along.
Yeah, it's silly
Very
as hell.
descriptive.
We didn't like the movie, but we had a lot of fun making fun of it. So
Yeah.
we would love for you guys to check it out. And
But we liked this. This was fun.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had a
this is a
great
lot
time
of-
today.
this is-
This is
This
great.
is great.
I always have a
Hell
great
yeah.
time with you boys. I love my Beastie
I
boys.
love you, boys. I miss you, boys.
Yeah, I miss you guys
Let's
too.
do
But
this
yeah,
again
so that's the
soon.
Mothman. If anyone has anything digging deeper that we might have missed, that or even another theory that could debunk it,
Yeah.
please email us
or a
at
theory
Mike.
that could support it either too. I honestly be more
Yeah.
interested in stuff that would, throw everything that I said like completely out the window and blow that shit completely out of the fucking water. So
Yeah, we'd love to hear from it because then we'll talk about it on a future episode.
Yeah.
Depending, but
For
email
sure.
us at beastieboysparanormal@gmail.com and we'll get back to you.
Have you seen a Mothman before something terrible happened in your life? Did you see the Mothman before you lost your job? Did you see a Mothman before you lost your
You
loved
have
one?
holes in your clothes. You might
Email
have a Mothman.
us, Beastie Boys, paranormal@gmail.com.
Good night, everybody.
Love you, boys.
We love
bye
you.
everybody.
Love you too. See you in the next one.
Bye, everybody.